This is a tribute to Rabbi R Wolfson, the Chasid Levrocha, who passed on this past Sunday, Yud Zayin Sivan Tovshin Pei Daled, 2024. Rabbi Wolfson was the Rav of the shul that became world famous, known as Emunas Yisrael, which has its main shul here in Borough Park and a division of it in Yerushalayim Bir HaKodesh, in the holy city of Jerusalem. Rabbi Wolfson was called by many people the Mashgiach, because he was the Mashgiach, the spiritual counselor and supervisor in the Yeshiva, in the world-famous, one of the oldest yeshivas here in America, called Torah Vodaas. And he was a most prominent Mashgiach there, a Mashgiach Ruchni, a spiritual mentor for hundreds and thousands of students throughout the years that he served as Mashgiach. Hence, they would call him the Mashgiach. The shul Emunas Yisrael started on 45th Street between 12th Avenue and New Utrecht in Borough Park many years ago, with a small group of students of Torah Vodaas who were under the tutelage of Rabbi Wolfson, and they made us a minyan. They rented, I believe, a storefront on that block. They made a minyan. And from there, they moved over to, I think, 14th Avenue, between 44th and 45th, something like that. And finally, they built their shul, their big shul, their beautiful shul on 16th Avenue between 43rd Street and 44th Street. What's the specialty of this shul? The specialty is its davening, its prayers. Although it's open 24/7 for learning, and there's a lot of learning going on there, serious learning, individuals that are alone, people with study partners, chavrusas. But what makes that shul special is the way they daven and how long it takes them to daven. I believe a regular Shabbos minyan is 3 hours. A regular weekday minyan, I believe, is an hour to an hour and a half. The idea is to daven mila b'mila, word for word, slow, enunciated, thinking the meaning of the words, and immersing yourself in the emotions coming forth from the meaning. But not in a way that is seen in other Hasidic communities, such as Stalin, where there's the screaming as part of the service, screaming to Hashem through words of prayer, gasping for air and then letting it all out, that's another part of this service. And then there are other Hasidic groups where there's shaking, and there's clapping, and there's dancing, and there's singing. In Emunas Yisrael, because Rabbi Wolfson was an ardent student of the Balatanya, of the Alter Rebbe, and he was this way because of his Rebbe, Rabbi Shraga Feivel Mendelovich, the main principal of Torah Vodaas, who really put the yeshiva on the map in the 1930s and 40s. He learned by Rabbi Shraga Feivel Mendelovich. I spoke to him about this once, and he told me so. I asked him another few things about Shraga Feivel Mendelovich. I did this because I wrote a book called Torah Vodaas and Lubavitcher, and you should read it because it gives you an insight into these two very important institutions here in America, in a sense, which built Jewry in America. But going back to the point, so he had this strong feeling for the Alter Rebbe, the Balatanya, because Reb Shraga Feivel Mendelovich himself did, and in fact, he would give a Tanya shir, and on Yutes Kislev, he would he would tell the students in Torah Vodaas they shouldn't say Tachnun. And until today, on Yutes Kislev in Torah Vodaas on the East 9th between Cortelu and Avenue C, where the yeshiva is, they don't say Tachnun. So Rabbi Wolfson was educated this way. Coupled with that, he heard about the previous Rebbe. He might have even seen him. I don't know. And surely he heard and saw the Rebbe from the 1950s on. And he became very attached to the Rebbe. Although he would say he has 3 Rebbes. The Satmarov, the Satmar Rebbe, Rabbi Yoel Kahn, the Skvere Rebbe, originally Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchok Tversky, and then his son. And he would say the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. But let me tell you that his connection with the Rebbe was a very deep one. He understood that the Chabad approach to Chasidus and to life is very different than Skver and Satmar, all very important but very different. And he, as a intellect, someone who enjoyed a good word, someone who knew how to learn, and someone who knew gematrias, and in fact, talking about gematrias, numerical equivalent of Hebrew words, and as they pertain to one's avodas Hashem, one's service to God. In 1989, he was at a rally, the Rebbe rally meeting in 770, where the Rebbe spoke to the children, and Rabbi J.J. Hecht, Yaakov Yehuda Hecht, was translating. And as the Rebbe was about to leave, Rabbi Hecht says out loud on the mic, he says, someone just handed me a note and said that the gematria of Ma'asef L'chol HaMachnis is 770, because the Rebbe spoke in that sikha about the Shevet Dan, the tribe Dan, which its main purpose and service was to gather all the lost items of the other Jewish people as they traveled in the desert, and they would pick up and gather the items, lost and found, to put it simply in English. And the Rebbe spoke about the spiritual significance of lost and found, how it applies to a child's service in breaking his Yetzer Hara and subduing his Yetzer Hara, etc. So Rabbi Hecht was handed a note, and the note said that the words Ma'asev L'chol HaMachlis, if you add up the letters, the numerical value, it equals 770. And you can see this on tape, on video. And the Rebbe looked and he said, like he made with his shoulders, like interesting, and he smiled. And to bring a smile to a tzaddik, and the Rebbe is a very big schus. Later on, we found out who was the person who mentioned this to Rabbi Hecht, someone who knew Rabbi Hecht from youth. This was Rabbi Moshe Wolfson. He happened to be in 770, and he was listening to the Rebbe's Sikha. Now you tell me, how many people come to 770 in the middle of a week? It was Chalamoid. You're right. So Chalamoid, Rabbonim would come because the concept of being Oile Regel, making the pilgrimage, to Yerushalayim, they would come to 770 and go to other Gedolim, other Tzaddikim, and other Rebbes. And Rabbi Wolfson came to 770. Now, must I tell you, what does that show? That he had a respect, and he considered the Rebbe, his Rebbe, that is Oile Regel, he's making the Aliyah Regel during Chalamoid. And in addition to that, he brings laughter and a smile on the Rebbe's face when he shares this word, this idea that Ma'asav Chol HaMachnos equals 770. I'm not here, and I'm not from those that push the Rebbe envelope. But nevertheless, when we talk about a Jew like Rabbi Wolfson, who lived 99 years, and that means he was born in 1925, and he lived through the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, the Holocaust here in America, and post-Holocaust, and he saw the development of Yiddishkeit from nothing in the 20s and 30s, where it was anti-Yiddishkeit all around, and he saw it developing and being augmented to the point where it is today, which is Baruch Hashem, thriving, not just surviving. Rabbi Wolfson in 1971 He had 2 students in Torah Vodaas, from his best students. He writes this in a letter. I have the letter. I printed it in my book. He writes in the letter that 2 of his best students, Elimelech Silverberg and Herschel Lustig, Rabbi Lustig Sr., who the former principal of Holy Torah, and Rabbi Silverberg, the Rav of the Chabad shul in Michigan, they told him that they want to leave the following Zman, the following Elul, they want to leave to 770. They want to transfer yeshivas. This was, I think, in Sivan when he wrote the letter, Nisan or Sivan. Anyway, and he says to the Rebbe that whatever the Rebbe will tell him, of course, he will agree and give them permission, because they came to Rabbi Wolfson to ask for his permission and his blessing. And so he writes a letter to the Rebbe, and he says he just wants the Rebbe to, and they're going to have yeshivas, I think, with the Rebbe. So this issue will be brought up. So he wants the Rebbe to have the background. The background is that they're from the older students, from the 2 best students, and they're a guide, an excellent guide for the younger students in Torah Vodaas, for the younger Bachurim. So by them leaving, it's a big hole in the Beis Medrash, in the learning, and not just in the learning, in the hadracha and the conduct of being a yeshiva bacher and a Talmud Chochem and a Chasidism bacher and everything else. But then he says, however, whatever the Rebbe will tell me, I will do, because the words of the Rebbe are like Novi bi Yisrael. Look at the letter. He wrote it, so it's his own handwriting. He says, I accept the words of the Rebbe like a prophet amongst Israel. Calling the Rebbe Novi bi Yisrael. Now, if you ask any Lubavitcher, he'll tell you, of course, the Rebbe is a Novi bi Yisrael. But Rabbi Wolfson wasn't a Lubavitcher. Rabbi Wolfson saw many Rebbes, Gedolim, Tzadikim, etc. And he comes to a place where he understands and he feels and he writes the Rebbe is Novi bi Yisrael. So I need not tell you about the kesher, the connection, the great connection between Rabbi Wolfson's and Chabad and the Rebbe. Every year on Yutes Kislev, Heichel Menachem here makes a big Yutes Kislev, Malav Malke farbrengens, and for years he was always one of the guest speakers. And understand, Rabbi Wolfson did not go to be a formal speaker anywhere, as far as I was told. But he made a point to come. Another thing that he came to was the Lag BaOmer parade that Chabad of Borough Park made, Rabbi Ginsburg made for years. He would attend as a guest speaker, knowing clearly that there are some in the greater Brooklyn community that were against it for whatever reason. It's not sneeze enough, it's not this, foolish stupidity. But there was this opposition, somewhat. And Rabbi Wolfson specifically came to show that Chabad-Lubavitcher is right, bringing Yiddish and Jewish children together to say Divrei Torah and Psukim, and to be aroused for tshuva, tefillah, tzedakah, etc., and Torah study. When he would go to Miami during the winter to get some respite, he usually went when the Alter Rebbe's Yortzeit Chavdalat Tevis was around that time, and Rabbi Leibel Shapiro of the shul, the Anshe Lubavitch over there in 41st Street area in Miami, would make a farbrengen, a mesiba, and he would always come and he would speak. He did it not being forced. He wanted to do it because he identified with the Alter Rebbe, the Rebbe Chabad-Lubavitcher. A person who lives 99 years, there's so much to say about them. What he did for his Talmidim, for his students in Torah Vodaas, was inculcate in them a Chasidische feeling. Torah Vodaas is kind of a combination of a Litvish approach and a Chasidish approach. Although the main principal of Shraga Feivel Mendelovich was, I believe, a Tzanzer Chasid, he was a Hungarian Hasidic Jew. Nevertheless, the various Rebbes and Rosh Yeshiva over the year, some were Hasidic, some weren't. For example, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, the great Goy, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, he was a Litvak. He was a Litvisher. He learned by the Alter of Slobodka, and he didn't claim to be a Chasid. Far from it. He wasn't anti-Chasidim, but he wasn't a Chasid. And he was one of the Rosh Yeshivas for years in Torah Vodaas. On the other hand, you had Rebbe Dov Ber Rivkin, Rebbe Rivkin, a prodigy, the student of the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, who wrote the Sefer Ashkafta the Rebbe. He was with the Rebbe Rashab the last few weeks of his life, and he documented it, and he was a Chasid. But in addition to that, he was a massive Talmud Chochem, and he was one of the Magidish Yudim Rosh Yeshivas, and also giving smicha after Rav Kushelevsky passed away to the Talmidim, to the students. To keep up this notion of Chassidus in Torah Vodaas, it took people like Rabbi Wolfson. Today it's Rabbi Williger, different people who over the years, they were the force of Chassidus in Torah Vodaas. And this idea is so relevant to his Talmidim, to his students today, to continue the Hasidic warmth that he brought to Torah Vodaas, to continue it and to augment it. And if it means to daven, to pray in his shul, to get that, do that. If it means to daven or whatever shul you daven and learn Chassidus, do that. So we could easily, just say Rabbi Wolfson was a Mashgiach and Torah Vodaas, and what does it have to do with us, with Chasidus, with the Baal Shem Tov? He was a Baal Shem Tov Chasid. He spoke that way. He lived that way. And you see that his son-in-law is Reb Mordechai, Reb Mottel Zilber, Zolzain Gesund, the Shtetziner Rebbe, and I believe his son was appointed, Rabbi Wolfson, he left in his will, he should become the Rav of Emunas Yisrael, and he is a Shtetziner Chasid. So Chasidus is most prevalent in Rabbi Wolfson's mindset. Rabbi Wolfson knew, for example, and grew up together with Reb Shlomo Karlbach and Reb Ben Zion Schenker and others. From 1925 to 2024, 99 years, you meet a lot of people. Rabbi Wolfson passed away on the same yahrzeit of Rabbi Yisrael Jacobson, who brought the Frierdiker Rebbe, one of the people, or the main person, the activist who brought the Frierdiker Rebbe to America, saving him from Nazi Germany, and who was a Mashpia later in 770, and in the late 20s and 30s, he spent time teaching Chassidus to students of Torah Vodaas who wanted to learn Chassidus, and not just that, they would come to his house on farbrengens, and that's why he's on the cover of my book, Torah Vodaas on Lubavitcher. And it's interesting that Rabbi Wolfson passed away on the same day as his yahrzeit. He's passed 49 years later. I believe Rabbi Jacobson passed away in 1975, and Rabbi Wolfson passed away in 2024. So everything's Mashgiach Pratis. It all tied together. What Rabbi Jacobson kind of began in the late 20s and 30s, cultivating Talmidei Torah Vodaas to learn Chassidus, to be more Hasidic and to understand what Chassidus is, etc., was then realized by Rabbi Wolfson all the years that he was Mashgiach in Torah Vodaas. So may Hashem help that with Tevis Nishmaseh, for the benefit of his neshama, the Talmidim, the students who loved him so much and who love him and who follow in his way should learn Chassidus, not just daven with Chassidus and not just shake with Chassidus, not just scream with Chassidus and not just, move and clap, but to study and understand Chassidus. Whatever Chassidus you want. Noam Elimelech, Morav Shomish, Svas Emes. He also was very big in the Sfarim of Reb Tzadok of Lublin. And of course, Tanya. And guess what? The Rebbe's Chasidus as well. The Lubavitcher Rebbe's Chasidus as well is worth looking into. Anyway, Rebbe should help that the Kitzur Rana Sheikh Ne'ofer, the Neshama of Rabbi R Wolfson Zatzal, and very soon we'll be together with him and all Tzadikei Olam, Yerushalayim Ben HaKodesh, Tchias HaMeshem, Mashgiach now, Amen v'Amen.